Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to our explainer on Anton Chekhov's absolutely brilliant one-act play, Swan Song. Chekhov is just a master of the character-driven narrative, and today we're unpacking his profound look into fame, aging, and honestly, the really heavy price of a life lived entirely on the stage. We're going to follow a retiring actor named Vasil Sviatofadov as he completely confronts his lonely present. It's a fascinating ride. Now, to truly understand where this narrative is going, we first have to look at the title itself. Swan Song isn't just, a catchy phrase. It's actually rooted in this old, really haunting piece of folklore. So, the belief goes that a certain kind of swan remains completely mute for its entire life, only to finally sing this one incredibly beautiful, tragic song right before it dies. Setting that up creates a deeply poetic, almost melancholic mood for everything that follows. What we're about to witness is Sviatlividov's private, final performance. Overcome with grief and hopelessness, he is the mute swan. And this dark night, well, it's his last beautiful, heartbreaking melody. Let's set the scene here. The curtain rises not on some vibrant, energetic performance, but on the aftermath. Just imagine this for a second. The stage is completely empty, it is consumed by pitch-black darkness, and right in the middle of it all sits a single overturned stool. The atmosphere is just utter isolation. Sviatlividov wakes up in the dressing room, totally disoriented, and wanders out into this vast, dark emptiness. It's a space that's deeply symbolic of the isolation he feels in his own soul. And that overturned stool, it perfectly captures how he feels discarded by the exact same society that just hours ago was applauding him. So let's look a little closer at Sviatlividov's physical and mental state at this exact moment, because honestly, it is viscerally miserable. See, there was a massive retirement celebration for him earlier that night, fans going wild with joy, bringing garlands, gifts, the whole shebang. But where are they now? They literally just left him unconscious in the dressing room and went home. He wakes up severely hungover, describing that all too relatable but miserable sensation of having 20 tongues in his mouth. Not exactly the glamorous morning after a star expects, right? He's just utterly alone. He cries out for the theater staff, Yegorka, Petrushka, but his calls just echo into nothing. Nobody answers. In this incredibly dark moment, he's flooded with self-critique. He calls himself a foolish old man, deeply regretting that he hasn't spent his later years going to church and, making things right with God. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that number right there, 45. Sviatlividov has been acting and performing on stage for 45 years. That is almost half a century given completely to the theater. And yet tonight is the very first time he has ever seen the theater at night after the lights have been put out. Think about that. For 45 years, he's only ever seen this space illuminated, vibrant, just full of life. So seeing it completely dark and silent for the very first time, it completely shatters his illusion. It forces him to confront his reality. As he stands there in the darkness, he drops this brilliant, devastating Chekhovian metaphor. He says, "I am a squeezed lemon." Wow. This isn't just about feeling tired. It's a really damning indictment of how fiercely society discards actors. And honestly, maybe all of us, once our perceived usefulness has expired. For years, he was the fruit that society squeezed for entertainment, for joy, for drama. But now that his career has ended, the juice is gone, and he's just been tossed aside. His relevance and importance have completely vanished. And his descent into this melancholy, it only deepens from there. He tells himself, "I have drained the bottle. Only a few little drops are left at the bottom, nothing but the dregs." He's directly comparing his life to a bottle of wine that's been totally consumed. Those dregs, those bitter, cloudy little drops left at the very bottom, they symbolize the few bleak years he feels he has left before death. It's heartbreaking. He really feels like he's outgrown his use and is just sitting around waiting to be disposed of. But then, right as he's drowning in all this isolation, completely ashamed of wearing a Joker's costume at his age, he gets startled. A figure emerges from the dressing room. Enter Nikita Ivanich. Now, Ivanich is the old theater prompter, and it turns out he secretly lives in the dressing room because he literally has nowhere else to go. At first, Sviatlividov is pretty startled, but this solitary figure quickly becomes his absolute anchor. Ivanich becomes the only person present, the only soul to whom Sviatlividov can fall upon his night and just openly weep about his crushing loneliness. Through this intensely emotional, tearful confession to Ivanichich, we get this heartbreaking comparison of his past and his present. He recalls a time when he was young, handsome, desired by many women, coming from a respected aristocratic family, playing all these important leading roles. But now, He looks at himself and sees someone who has degraded into an old clown. When Ivanitch softly suggests, hey, it's time to go home, Svetlavidov tragically reveals that he doesn't actually have a home to go to. There's no wife, no children waiting for him. The fame he traded his entire life for was nothing but an illusion. And this tragic personal realization, it actually points to a much, much harsher societal truth. It really helps to know the context here. Back in 19th century Russia, the stage carried a massive societal stigma. The love of society was entirely conditional. Sure, acting brought incredible fame, but it definitely was not considered an honorable profession. Svetlavidov recalls this woman he loved when he was young. She was totally ready to marry him, but on one super strict condition. He had to quit acting. It was like she could love an actor, but she absolutely could not marry one. Even the wealthy male fans who bought his photographs, the guys who brought him garlands and wild applause, they would never, ever allow a man like him to marry their sisters or daughters. The adoration was just completely hollow. This realization brings him to the absolute lowest point of his emotional arc. He stares out into the pitch-black darkness of the empty theater and complains that everything in his life has been devoured by the black pit. He envisions this dark ditch, a literal hole directly in front of him. It's such a powerful, inescapable metaphor for his impending grave. He gave his entire life, his chance at a family, his social standing, all of it, to the theater. And what did he get in return? The theater has just turned into this black pit waiting to swallow him whole. But then, something miraculous happens. Right when the despair seems absolutely inescapable, there's an ascent. A sudden, brilliant spark of artistic energy ignites within him. The very space that felt like a grave just a second ago suddenly transforms right back into a place of magic. Because at the end of the day, he is an actor. The stage is his domain. And even in the pitch-black darkness, the sheer power of performance begins to pull him right out of the abyss. He literally can't help himself. The artistic spirit completely takes over. He urges the old prompter, Ivanitch, to play the role of the fool, and Svetlavidov just begins to perform. He starts reciting the greats, throwing out lines from King Lear, then diving headfirst into Hamlet and shifting right into Othello. And to be clear, this isn't just a guy quoting lines. This is a passionate, tearful, thunderous recitation. He's reenacting the pieces he considers his greatest performances, and in doing so, he completely transforms his dark depression into this breathtaking artistic revival. It is his true swan song, echoing beautifully through the empty theater. And through this impromptu performance, a really profound realization washes over him. He concludes that old age is no obstacle if a man is really a genius. So the crucial point is this. While society might discard the physical vessel, and while the body may age and ache, true artistic greatness, it transcends physical decay. The fire of his talent hasn't dimmed one single bit, even if his audience has already gone home. Ivanovich, standing there witnessing this incredible display, assures him that he is indeed a genius. And then, as it always does, the real world gently intrudes. Ivanitch informs him that Petrushka and Yegorka, the theater staff, are finally returning. The spell of the performance is broken, but you know what? The despair is gone. Svetlavidov embraces the old prompter in tears. Their bond is cemented, two discarded men who found this really profound connection in the dark. Together, having shared this absolutely beautiful final performance, the two actors peacefully exit the stage. Through this single dark night of the soul, Chekhov leaves us with some truly timeless ethical values. And this brilliantly illustrates that true talent and artistic greatness do not diminish with age. They're a permanent part of the human spirit. But he also warns us very clearly that fame is an absolute illusion. It simply cannot replace genuine human connection. Achieving professional success, no matter how many garlands you get or wild cheers you receive, will ultimately leave you with emotional emptiness if personal fulfillment and real, authentic relationships are completely absent from your life. Which brings us to the ultimate question that Chekhov's 19th century masterpiece forces us to ask about our own modern lives. Does the pursuit of professional greatness justify a life completely empty of personal connection? When the lights finally go out on your career, what will be left sitting in the dark with you? It's a heavy thought, right? But it's one that is absolutely vital to consider as we try to balance our own ambitions with the people we love. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this leaves you with something deeply meaningful to reflect on today.